Hey there everyone, my name's Andrew and this is Canadian Starships. Welcome to the very first update on the Galaxy Class Starship. This is a 1000 scale Galaxy Class project that we are going to be building. It is big and it is going to be an exciting project to watch. There's going to be a lot of things that I'm going to learn through the process of building this kit. And we're going to get started right away. It is Friday, and under normal circumstances, I would be pulling into the Crowne Plaza Hotel in Louisville, Kentucky for Wonderfest. Unfortunately, with COVID-19, the border between the United States and Canada is still closed. So instead of being in Louisville at Wonderfest, enjoying all the wonderful models there and taking the Enterprise E, I'm here getting started on this 1000 scale Galaxy Class project. Now, you'll notice that it's not being called the 1000 scale Enterprise D project. That's because although the Enterprise D is a Galaxy Class, not every Galaxy Class is the Enterprise D. And the person who has commissioned this build has their own name in mind. So it's going to be a custom name and custom registry, which is going to fall in line with their company. And because the name can be subject to change up until the point that the decals are printed and they're going onto the ship, I will save the reveal of the name for that time. So if the client decides that they want to change the name or the registry, then, well, you don't really know the difference, right? So that's just going to be a secret that's going to be kept until a later update. So what I want to start off by doing is show you the kit. I'm going to show you all the parts. I've done very basic work on it. Basically, all I've done is cleared out a little bit of extra resin in the net because I wanted to investigate the armature that I'm going to be using. So that's the only thing I've done in the kit. I've cleaned out a little bit of the resin that's just extra in the neck, so I could look at seeing how the armature will go through there. Apart from that, it is still untouched. Tomorrow is going to be a big day of cleaning up the parts. I don't have all the tools I need to be able to handle cleaning up the edges on some of these parts, namely the saucer section, and I'll show you that in a little bit. So I'm heading to my father's workshop where he has a plethora of tools that I could only dream of having. He had his own woodworking business for years and has a well-outfitted shop. So we're gonna pack up the van, take the family up there for the day, and I'm gonna get a bunch of work done on some of those extra big, powerful tools. So let's show you what it is that we are going to be working on. But before we get started, why not take a moment and click the subscribe button, and while you're here, click on that notification bell so you don't miss a single video. Here we have probably the two most important parts of the Galaxy Class kit. We've got the upper and we've got the lower saucer sections. Now, these are going to be probably the most time-consuming parts to get ready to build. There is a significant ledge here. It's going to be really hard to see because these are translucent pieces and the light's not going to show you a whole lot of the detail. But you can really see on this edge here that none of this lower portion here belongs, and there is an area up to the edge of the saucer that's going to be needing to be gotten rid of. So this whole area in here is going to need to be ground down, probably on the belt sander, I would imagine. And then these parts here have exactly the same issue. They're going to be a little bit trickier to do because the gap in between the two saucers is incorporated into this piece. And when I get rid of all of this extra material here, I'm going to have to take about half of the width of the inner part here out. And I'm going to have to be very careful to leave the section that needs to be in there. And it has to be even all the way around the saucer. So that's going to be quite the job for me to do tomorrow in the big shop. Now, just to give you a bit of a size comparison here, because it's a little bit hard to see just the size of the saucer. Here is the 1000 scale saucer. Here is the 1400 scale saucer. You can see the size difference there. This is going to be a nice size kit. I don't think it's going to be too big. I think it's just a really nice size, and I wish round 2 would come out with a clear styrene kit of 1000 class Galaxy class ships. So over here you also have a whole pile of just filler material here that's going to have to come out. The neck will not go into place here with this garbage in here, so that's going to need to be taken out. It's all solid on this side, so that's going to have to be carefully cut and ground out of here meticulously to keep this edge perfect. Next up for your viewing pleasure are the secondary hull pieces. So we've got the neck piece, which is really nicely detailed. And you can see that there is still some junk resin in here. This was kind of fully covered in, so I've started to clear this out. This is a little bit thick just to get with the tools I have on hand, so I'll either get that with the Dremel later or maybe tomorrow in the shop. Then we've got the upper secondary hull piece. Again, I've cleared out some of this. Now, the junk resin is actually coming up above the mating point, the mating surface, where the neck goes on. So that might need to be dealt with on the belt sander tomorrow, just to get that down nice and flush. Again, I'll have to be careful not to take any part of the ship away with it. Then we've got the lower hull, secondary hull section, and I'm debating where I'm going to put the post. Center of gravity is right about here. Might lose some of that nice fan door, cargo door detail, but I think for the structural integrity of the ship, it's going to be best if it goes here. The other option would be to put it back here, but that's going to be a lot more tricky with the armature that's going to have to be made for this kit as well. So I'm thinking it's going to go right in front of this phaser strip. That's where the support goes on the studio model. They obviously know what they're doing, so I might just mirror that. Then we've got these pylons in the back. They are in solid resin. They also have a metal hollow metal tube through, one to give it a little bit more structural integrity, and two to provide a place for you to run wires. But that's a very, very tiny conduit to run probably at least 2 circuits, because you're going to have constant ons and you're going to have flashers. So it's going to be at least 2 circuits running through there, and we'll have to see what the control board looks like. The warp engines may need to be on a separate, like the chiller grills might need to be on a separate circuit. I'm not quite sure. So the options are pack that conduit full, or just dig a trench around here somewhere. Because there's no molded on detail like there is on the AMT kit, which really you would need to scratch off anyway, it would not be too difficult to just create a channel through here and run some very fine wire up there. We'll have to see how that plays out when it gets joined together. This is going to be the most problematic joint on the ship, I believe. So what I'm probably going to do, my plan anyway, is to join the bottoms first, get those really nice and solid, level everything. This will be already leveled onto the post that I'm going to be using, and well, not onto the post, but the post connector will be in here, and it's going to be all leveled out. These will get secured in. All of the wiring that needs to be done will happen, and then this piece will go on after all of that is done. That's the plan at this point, at least. And finally, all the other pieces for the project. So we've got the nacelles here. They come as halves, and the chiller grills are molded into those halves. We've got the Bizarre collectors, which are all one piece molded, and they look so much nicer than the AMT version. We've got 2 pieces for the deflector dish, and then we've got the 2 neck shuttle bays. We've got the 2 impulse housings for the impulse drive on the saucer section, and then we've got a main shuttle bay door. Now you would have noticed that the shuttle bay door is molded into the saucer part, and that brings up an interesting issue. I was wondering about getting rid of the door that's molded in and putting in this replacement part, simply because I'm going to be installing a phaser fire effect on this, and I want to be able to access the board in case anything ever needs to be serviced on it. And there's too many wires on the tenant control board, if that's the route I go, to be able to put it in the base. And having a hatch where a hatch is supposed to be on the ship could be an interesting option, but it could be problematic trying to get that cut out nice and neatly the way that the kit has been molded. So not quite sure if I'm going to be using that. But this is all the parts that are part of this ship. There are 18 pieces altogether, which is crazy to think. Only 18 pieces for this entire huge Galaxy class ship. All the parts look really nice. There is a lot of molding points on the parts that need to be taken care of, all which I'm hoping will be taken care of tomorrow in the big shop. Now, another important part of the whole process in getting ready to build this is to have something to build it on. Now, I don't mean the workbench, I mean a working base. This is going to require a significant metal armature, and it's going to need something that's going to be able to take the weight of the model and make sure that it stays so it's not moving, it's not tipping. It needs a really good solid heavy base, and so this is what I'm going to use for the working base. This is not going to be anything to do with the presentation base. This is the working base. The bottom is the bottom of a base that I was given by my previous client from an old project he had that was torn apart. These are just 2 blocks of 2x6 that are cut into squares. They've been connected together with screws from both ends. They've been screwed into the bottom of the block of wood here, and this looks like it is a butcher block kind of situation going on here. If you look carefully, you can see where the strips of wood are joined together. It's hardwood. It's solid, it's heavy, and this is going to take the weight of the model and keep it stable and level very well. What I'm going to do tomorrow in the big shop with the drill press is I'm going to put the hole for the post in here with the drill press so it is perfectly straight, plumb, so that the model stays completely level. The post will sit into here, and upon that will the Galaxy Class Starship be built. I'm going to be using a 1/2-inch brass pipe as the mount for this project. And I've learned through trying to find the supplies I need that a 1/2-inch brass pipe is the equivalent of a 3/8-inch copper pipe. Why that's different, I don't really know. But for your reference, I have a 3/8-inch copper T-joint here. Several of these are going to be going into the construction of the armature. And this is actually going to be used in the bottom of the ship to create the mount to the post. So 1/2-inch brass post tube. This is the 3/8-inch copper T. Again, the sizing doesn't match up to real world, so I have no idea. But that kind of gives you an idea of the size. It's going to be very solid, very strong. The armature is going to go up through the neck into the saucer. It's going to be nice and stable. It's going to really give structural integrity to the whole project. So the final portion of the show and tell of what came in the box with the model are the decals. Now, it's very basic decals with this project. There weren't really a pile of markings on the Enterprise D, especially when compared to the Enterprise E. I've gone over the studio model pictures and I can't find a whole lot that needs to be added yet. So these are the ship markings and then a whole plethora of individually numbered escape pod hatch covers, which will be fun to put on. Now, obviously, the Enterprise 1701D will be of no use to me. I'm going to need to create new registries and new names, and there are only a few points on the ship where those actually happen. So you've got a couple identifiers here, a couple here, and most of those are easily replaceable because they are simply black. This is a dark blue with red around the edges that will be a little more tricky, but relatively easy to do. Fortunately, unlike the Enterprise E, there are no names between really thin pennant lines. You can think about the lines that go across the engineering section and the warp nacelles on the Enterprise E. Those would be trickier to just replace names. Here, I just need to replace registry numbers and names, so that is what comes in the kit. So what you're seeing here is the work that I did in my father's woodworking shop. Here is the belt sander with the disc sanding attachment. Right now I am working on getting the extra material that goes out from the edge of the saucer cleaned off. In this next clip, I am removing the depth of the extra material that's on the saucer. And this is where it really starts to get cleaned up. I had to be very careful doing this that I didn't take off too much material. And using the belt sander is the best way I could think of to keep the cleaning of the parts flat. Now, it's never going to get cleaned up perfectly flat, and there is going to be a lot of body work on this seam that's going to need to happen when this is all done. Well, it was a really good productive day getting the rough work done on cleaning up these parts. I spent some time today with the Dremel cleaning up some of the more detail work. You can see that some of the excess resin is removed from the bottom of the neck area. I've done some cleanup at the back end of the secondary hull. Now there's going to be a lot of body work that needs to be done there. There's some bubbling in the cast, which you've got to be able to expect. It's a pretty good casting of the kit overall. The saucer section, I did the refinement on the area where the neck joins the secondary hull, but it's not a perfect fit by any means. So there's going to be some body work and filler and stuff like that. I'll need to patch that up, fill that in, and then make sure that I really well define that mating point there, because the ship is supposed to separate. So it needs to have that really nicely defined separation point. And I'll probably need to do the same thing where the top of the saucer joins the neck, just define that out. Also, I got the brass tube bent for the saucer support. Now, it's not the prettiest thing. It's not a perfect oval. There's a couple kinks in it. Couldn't quite get the pipe hot enough to fully anneal it. So there are a few kinks and doesn't look the most pretty, but it's going to be inside the ship and it just needs to be able to do its job of supporting the structure. There is a hole that's been drilled in the top of the 3/8 copper T. That's so that I can run wires up the spine support and out into the saucer section. I'm going to have a special phaser lighting effect, which I should be able to show you a little bit of a preview of some initial work here in just a little bit, but I'll be able to run wires through the through the brass pipes, tubes, and should come out right there. And that'll just help keep everything nicely organized, neat and tidy and secure inside the model. And finally, today, a little demonstration of just what I've been playing around with the Arduino board that came in today and some addressable LED tape. There's 60 LEDs here, and let's just give it some power and see what it does. Oh, that's really nice. So what's going on here is I've got the Arduino hooked up to the addressable LEDs, and the programming is basically telling it to fire phasers randomly anywhere along the phaser strip. Now, I do have the Tenet controls board for this size Enterprise D, but it only has 25 LEDs, and 25 LEDs stretched across the massive phaser arc on this ship is not a lot. So I just want to play around with using a much more densely packed LED line for the phaser fire. Plus, if I go with this option, I only have 3 wires going to the board essentially, instead of a whole pile coming from the tenant controls board. What this would allow me to do is to put the Arduino unit in the base, because if I was to use the tenant controls board, that would have to go into the ship, be sealed in, and if anything ever happened to it, you're basically toast on it, because you'd have to break into the model to fix it or get it out or replace it. So this is just some quick research and work I've done on it today. The board came in the mail today. What I'm going to do is some more research, see about extending it a little bit longer, see about putting sound with the phaser effect. So that's going to take me a little bit of time, but I wanted to show you a little bit of pizzazz for the end of this update. So that's going to be it for the very first update on the 1000 scale Galaxy Class project. We made a lot of progress. I'm really happy with all the cleanup that's happened on the parts. That's a good chunk of work. Now there's going to be more refinement work that has to be done on those. There's going to be the fine detail cleanup that's going to need to happen. So I'm going to be working on that over the next little while. I'm happy that I got that ring for the saucer support done. I've got all of the parts in now to start working on the armature and to get the start done on construction of this thing. Now I've noticed that the top part for the secondary hull lays out a little bit wider than the bottom part. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way of forming that, getting that to come in a little bit so it mates with that bottom part. I'll probably create a bit of a jig that I can put the heated piece in, let it cool so that it forms to that size so it mates perfectly with the bottom. I'm gonna have to play around with that. That's just one of the things that you run into when you're working on these garage kits. They are not commercially produced kits, and you have to expect to put the elbow grease into getting them ready to build. They don't come ready out of the box to build like the round 2 kits do. They need work. So that's where I'm going to be picking it up next time. I hope you liked the little light show there. That's by no means done. That is just a very initial test phase for the phasers. What I'm going to be doing next with that is looking at how do I get the audio to work in tandem with the light show. I also want to play around with how many lights I'm going to be using, speed, color, all of those things. And that's just going to take some trial and error and experimentation and making mistakes and figuring it out and a whole lot of learning. But I'm really excited with the way it's looking so far. So lots that has been accomplished, but a whole pile left to do. I hope that you've enjoyed that. If you have enjoyed this update, please make sure that you hit that like button. If you're new to my channel or you haven't done so yet, why not hit that subscribe button today? You'll make me very happy if you do. And we are on the journey to 1,000 subscribers for the 1000 scale Galaxy Class. So if you can help me out with that, that would be great. But for now, my name's Andrew, and this is Canadian Starships. Have a great day, everyone.